do now is give you a sense of the battle as it is unfolding across Ukraine. What we have over here on this map in the India Today War Room, you can see the areas which are currently with the Russian army. You can see areas which are currently controlled by the Ukrainian army and areas where fights are taking place. So bear with me as I take you through. The interesting thing here is that the Russian army came by land, by air and by sea. So they came with the navy and the naval assets of the Russian Navy attacked the port city of Odessa. Remember, Crimea already part of Russia, and from there as well attacks being staged, and then attacks staged in Donetsk and Luhansk in the eastern part of Ukraine, which is where Gaurav Sawant, our colleague, has been reporting from, and massive shelling reported in places like Mariupol, where Gaurav was, in the eastern part of Ukraine. A lot of the Indian students who are on their way to countries like Romania, countries like Hungary, countries like Poland, exiting from the western part of Ukraine in places like Lviv. So long queues at the border areas near the border between Ukraine and Poland, for example, as lakhs of people try and flee to safety. But the maximum amount of bombing that we've seen has been reported in Kyiv, where you've been seeing those images of Russian tanks mowing passenger vehicles, Russian aircraft bombing multi-story buildings, and as Farid was saying earlier, the Russian army very unmindful of civilian casualties, which is very dangerous, because as they fail to execute their order of battle or obey, the Russian army will then start increasing the level of hostility and violence. They started out hoping that they'd be able to pummel the Ukrainian army into submission, like President Ghani, hoping that President Zelensky would flee to safety. That didn't happen. And therefore now, as you can see on those images, heavier firepower being used, missiles being rained on Ukrainian buildings, and this could escalate in the days to come, especially as the Ukrainians continue putting up a fight back.
У нас дырка, просто в зале дырка.
I want to go across live to Kyiv at this moment. Maria Sarenko joins us from there. She's been helping us get insights of what's happening on the ground in Kyiv. Maria, welcome. Thank you for joining us again at a time of great personal risk. Can you give our viewers a sense of how the day's been in Kyiv? We're seeing these images from across the city. Massive firepower being unleashed by the Russian army on these buildings, and these images really shocking the whole world now.
Yeah, hello. I'm from street of Kyiv now. I'm not in bomb shelter, but walking around, and I want to show you this picture of joy. Maybe you can't hear it, but there is a man singing some opera in Italian, which really seems kind of out of place here now in Kyiv. The city which is surviving is going through really a war, a full-scale invasion. And I have also had walks around the city center, the Krishchatyk street, where not the governmental quarters are located, but the main street with civilians. And people here are really having their walks, walking the dog, just wandering around, trying, I guess, to kill the time. And also the weather today in Kyiv is sunny, and you won't believe that there is war, actually. But back to the main information now, the report from the State Road Service have been released that all the road signs, except for the names of cities and villages, should be put off so that the enemy, the Russian troops, could not be targeted, could be, you know, at a loss when trying to find Ukrainian cities, so that they are deprived of any orientation, you know, the signs where to go, and to put away all the arrows showing the directions to the cities and how many kilometers are left. So that is the latest updates, the latest news about what's going on in Ukraine. And also we have been getting reports of the fact that there are a lot of sabotage groups in Kyiv, here in Kyiv. So the SBU, the state security service, also advised people to be very careful and to report about strange people walking around. And also the latest updates from Kyiv is that the curfew has been moved to the 5 p.m. So the previous days it used to be at 10 p.m. and now at 5 p.m. So everybody who will be seen in the streets after 5 p.m. would be considered a threat and a potential person who is a member of Russian sabotage groups. That is what we see from the official reports, official information, and also consistent informations about, again, Russian airstrikes or, so to say, air alerts are getting now. So as we speak, I am watching the screen of my phone where there are pop-up notifications about the events. This is how we are getting information these days about all the events of invasion. And there is still some reports about military actions going, for example, in Kherson. So here in Kyiv, now there is like a calm situation, but contrary to that, in Kherson, in the southern part of Ukraine, the military actions are still going. And why I'm talking about this? Because now in Kyiv, you feel a little bit relaxed. So the morning was tense, very dangerous, very rough, and everybody could feel that. But now with the sun, with all the reports that this threat had been neutralized, everybody like feel a little bit more inclined to give a little bit of rest and to breathe, so to say. Yeah.
You're a very brave reporter. We deeply appreciate your commitment to continue giving us the latest updates from the streets of Kyiv. Maria Sarayenko, for joining us at this moment, thank you very much. I want to show you images of the Ukrainian fight back, and if our producers can show you on this map that we've built, which gives a sense of where the Russian army is at this moment. And remember, we'll keep updating this map as time goes along. So what you see with the arrows are the Russian points of ingress, which is where the Russian army came in from. Massive fighting being reported from Kyiv in the eastern part of Ukraine. Fighting also in Mariupol, which is where Gaurav Sawant and Rajesh Pawar are, and massive shelling being reported from all around them. Fighting also from the north, which is essentially where the Russian army is coming in from towards Kyiv. So a lot of those mechanized columns that you see that are coming in, the tanks that are rolling on the highways are essentially heading towards Kyiv. And there the question is, what could Russia's endgame be? Can they possibly militarily occupy a city as big as Kyiv, given the hostility of the local population, or is this just an attempt to engineer a regime change? Pramit Pal Chaudhary joins us. He's one of India's top foreign affairs experts, and Pramit's looking at this conflict very closely. Pramit, your sense at this time of whether the Russians are being able to execute their order of battle. Do you think that they're facing tougher resistance than they'd bargained for? Or do you think that they probably did anticipate that there would be a Ukrainian pushback, and which is essentially what's playing itself out, and which is why they're increasing the level of violence as the days wear on?
Well, sitting here, it's hard to tell, but my sense, and from everything I'm hearing and putting together, I would say the first part of it is true. The Russians did not expect to face so much resistance. When they had carried out the attacks in 2014, for example, the Ukrainian army, which barely existed at that point, it crumbled very quickly. And given the overwhelming military capacity of Russia, their assumption was that it would not, the Zelensky government would collapse relatively quickly. And then this would be a war that would be over, within 3, 4, 5 days. But that's obviously not happening. And you can see the stories of them running out of fuel. They've actually seemed to run out of even cruise missiles. They've stopped firing a lot of them because they don't seem to have enough stocks. And their other assumption was that they would be able to get this war over quickly enough that the West would not be able to ratchet up economic sanctions, because that is something they are mildly nervous about. But that's not happening. And in fact, they were starting, if Russia's taken out of the SWIFT financial payment system, and the real problem for Russia would be if their energy sector is hit as the days progress. So my guess would be yes. The Russians did not predict this. They assumed that they would have at least one or two major cities under their control, and that presently they don't seem to have that.
Okay. I want to go across to Lulia Mandal, a close aide of President Zelensky, and in fact, President Zelensky emerging as a global hero, Lulia, with the kind of fight back he's been able to lead. He was caught off guard. A lot of his rhetoric seems to have been very naive in the build-up to the Russian invasion, but now he's emerging as a real hero in this David versus Goliath battle. Ami?
Hi, nice. Hi, if you hear me well, I must say that I'm not sure I've heard you well, but as of your question, what I've understood, you are talking about the communication about the risks of war. Yes, really, the president of the country was making focus on the fact that he did not want to panic in Ukraine, which is understandable from many points of view, because economy suffers from panic and people suffer from panic. And in a situation, especially such difficult situation as war, panic is always a big enemy. I even cannot say that people in such situation as now are panicking. Yes, of course, we have a lot of emotions, but usually people try to keep their head cold. And the president also repeats today that there is no need for panic. Of course, you're saying about the situation that cannot be expected ever. And the president right now is demonstrating the role of a real leader who is staying with his people to the very end. Because yesterday, the United States of America offered Volodymyr Zelensky support to leave the country when Kyiv city was heavily attacked, bombarded, where there were sabotage groups shelling in the city. But he stayed in the country and in his office to the very end. Until today, we understood that Ukraine actually fought the city back, and the Russians suffered losses in this battle. So as for today, we can definitely say that we really struggle a lot to fight Russian attack in the southeast and north of the country. We have a lot.
Speaking to different people in the Ukrainian government, you're a close associate of President Zelensky. Can you give our viewers a sense of how long the Ukrainian army hopes to be able to hold out, given the scale of the Russian assault, the sheer ferocity of the arsenal that's been unleashed on the Ukrainian people? How confident is your government that you'll be able to hold out in the face of this invasion, and for how long?
If I heard you correctly, you mentioned the Ukrainian conflict. It's not the correct thing to say. There is Russian war against Ukraine or Russian aggression against Ukraine. Ukrainians will stand to the very end. It's not easy to come and capture 40 million of Ukrainians. Putin collected 175,000 of troops, and this can heavily damage the country. But it's very difficult to imagine up to now that they can capture the country and can keep the country under their control, because they do not seem to have enough anything, any resources, any people, or any techniques. What they're doing, they're heavily damaging the country and trying to gain the authority of the country. We know definitely that Russia is hunting the authority of the country and in main the president of the country.
Lulia Mandal, close associate of President Zelensky, for joining us from Kyiv. Thank you very much. Lulia makes a very important point that the people will not accept Russian occupation, and when the people are determined to fight back, then a country of 44 million is very difficult to subjugate, because the Russians can come in with their firepower, overwhelm the relatively smaller Ukrainian army, but to hold on to urban warfare. We've seen images of Ukrainians lining up to pick up guns for self-defense and to fight the Russian army. And the moment that happens, you've got Russian soldiers, for example, walking on the streets, and you've got people with assault rifles in their buildings. They're easy target. America couldn't hold on to Afghanistan. They had to leave, and the Afghan people and the Taliban had far lesser firepower than the Ukrainians have access to at this moment. So this could be bloody, it could be long, and it could drag itself out. Did President Putin calculate this fully? Are things going as per his plan, or is he seeing a fiercer pushback than he anticipated for? We'll focus on all of that when we come back. On the other side of a quick break, you're watching India Today's live and continuing coverage of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Stay with us. Back in a moment.